Hi, my name is Bryn, and welcome to this series of Unreal Engine training for specifically the events industry. Now, there are plenty of video sources out there of how to do specific things in Unreal Engine. However, this training is going to be solely focused on event visualizations. So if you want to know things in particular for particular subjects, there's probably someone who's actually better than this than I am in their specific field. So if you want to learn more about dynamic lighting and how that all works, then I recommend going to see those channels because they'll go into a lot more detail about those things than I will. However, I will go into more detail in regards to the event industry and how to build event visualizations. So without further ado, let's go into training. I'm going to treat this as if you guys have never opened Unreal Engine before. If this feels a little basic to you, then feel free to skip along or go to other videos because I will be starting and treating you as if you have never opened Unreal Engine before. I do sort of expect that you might have a little bit of experience in 3D or maybe you've done visualizations in other programs before, but for the starting of Unreal, I'm going to assume that you haven't done anything in Unreal before. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go to Film, Video, and Live Events, and you're going to have a few options here: Virtual Production, DMX, In-Camera VFX, Motion Design, End Display, and of course, Blank. Now, what we want to do is we want to select Starter Content, because we always want to have our starter content in there, and we also want to hit Blank. Now, we are going to enable Virtual Production, DMX, and a few of these other things as well, because what basically these do is when you click on them, they'll already pre-open all of the plugins and enable all the plugins related to Virtual Production, related to DMX, related to In-Camera VFX, and so on. Now, virtual production is really good if you are compositing and you're creating a LED wall inside Unreal Engine to be used in real life. So, for instance, if you are on a movie set and you want to have a video wall behind your actors that is displaying the background and you want to do it that way, then you would use virtual production, something like this. However, we're not going to be using that. We don't really go into virtual production in these courses because we don't really do that for events. That's more for literal movie studios and things like that. DMX, though, we will be using. And DMX, when you click on DMX, it will open a template DMX project file, which you can go through and you can learn a lot more about DMX. However, we will be skipping that and we'll be learning directly how to do it very quickly in this episodes further to come. Now, when you click DMX, it will pop open a template which already has a show file in it, which shows you all the effects and what you can do with Unreal Engine in regards to plugins and the plugin of DMX. However, we're not going to be doing that because we don't want to open that and it has too much stuff in it that we don't need. Then we have in-camera VFX. We're not going to need that as well. We're using our own sort of workflow for cameras. They're not really great, in my opinion. It's better to do it from scratch. Motion design I haven't actually gone into yet, and that seems more on the animation side. Again, I'm not going to touch on this because animation and motion design is not the purpose of any of these videos I'm going to be releasing. And end display, I will touch on end display maybe a little bit. Even I'm not that really familiar with it because I've never really needed it for my things. I use different plugins to enable my video screens, which we'll go into later. All of these other ones you can go through in your own time and learn more about them and going through the template folder and see what they've already set up for you. One thing I would recommend is using DMX and going through here and using this template and just fiddling around with it in your own time, because you might be able to pick up a few things that I might miss, and it's also fun to see what Unreal Engine's capable of. But for now, we want to hit blank and we want to decide our project name. Now, when you create anything in Unreal Engine, you have to have it all as one word. You can't have any spaces. So when you select your project name, you can't have any spaces in it. And then you hit create. Okay, so what we want to do before we even open anything at all, we want to go up to the top right-hand corner here underneath edit, go to plugins down over here, and then we want to select all the plugins that we foresee ourselves using because it's going to restart Unreal. So we don't want to have to restart later in the future. So the first thing we're going to need is we're going to need DMX, because usually in most events you are going to have DMX lighting. So you're going to click all of these, and we shouldn't need Remote Control Protocol DMX. Then we're also going to need a plugin called Datasmith. Now, what Datasmith allows you to do is it allows you to import Datasmith files from C4D, from SketchUp. It allows you to import FBX files. We're just going to select all of these. Another one is you want to scroll all the way down on the left-hand side here, and you want to go to text, and you want to go to 3D text. Just click yes on that, because there is a high chance that you'll want to put text into your scene, so add that in as well. Now we can go restart now right over here. Once your engine has restarted, you're ready to go. What we want to do first is we want to create a new map or a new level. So we want to go down to the bottom left-hand corner here. We're going to go right-click on content and have add new folder. We're going to call this maps. The next thing we want to do is add a new level. Now, this is all well and good, but we want to have kind of the sky and everything else all ready to go, so we don't have to add it in ourselves. So what we would do, we go File menu and we go New Level. Now we'll come up with a few options here. What we want to do is just either Open World or Basic as the ones you want to select. I usually just go with Basic, and we go Create. Great. Now what we can do is we can save this level. So we want to go up the bottom, top left-hand corner here, and go Save Current Level As. And we're going to save this in Maps. And we're going to go call this Training. Make sure to click on the level again, just to make sure it's exactly the same level as what you've got open here. This is a really important step, and a lot of people miss this, because what they will do is they will create a level and then forget to save it, and then come back and realize that their level is no longer there. So make sure that your level is saved and you've got that one in there. What you can also do is you can go up to Edit up here, and you go into Project Settings, and you can make sure that this map or this level starts every time you open Unreal. Otherwise it will start with something else. So what we're going to do here is basically tell Unreal that we want this map, our main map, to come up first whenever we start up our project. So when we type in map here, we have a few different options for the default maps, and we just want to select this and go down to our map called Training. What this will do is it will mean that whenever you open Unreal Engine, Training will be the one, or whatever you call your level here, it will be the one that comes up first, so you don't have to keep changing into whichever level. One quick point here is that if you decide to have different variations, and you have different configurations for your event for your clients, and when you're presenting these ideas to whoever you are presenting them to, you can have different options here, and you can just complete your project, copy and paste, and then you'll have version 2 or whatever, and you can change your chairs around or whatever the case may be, without having to completely start a new project, because that can cost a lot of hard drive space. However, one quick thing I will note with this is that it does potentially cause some instability with your project file, and it might cause your project file to crash if you have too much stuff and you haven't optimized your things that you have inside of your project. If the project becomes too large, it becomes quite slow and all of that sort of stuff. And obviously, it takes up a lot of space. Now, on the right-hand side here, we have lighting, which is automatically put into our scene from Unreal when we clicked on a new level. And it already has a few options here. We have directional light, which is basically the sun. We change the rotation of the sun, and it will change where the sun's coming up, depending on whether it's, sunset or morning, and then you've got peak time of day, and then you've got night. And obviously it's all completely black because there's no stars or moon or any sort of light source depicting a nighttime setting. So we're just going to keep this during the day. And we can change that with the rotation. We can change where the sun's coming from with rotation over here. Sometimes it's good to have it from a different angle. If you've got doing a festival and you want your sun setting behind the festival stage opposed to above it or into the sides of it, or whatever the case may be, you can change all of those settings there under directional light. We can also change the light color. So if you want to get a little bit moody, you can get a little bit moody. I don't really recommend changing any of this sort of setting unless you absolutely have to. However, what you can do with this is you can add a little bit more orange, or sort of like a CTO-ish sort of look, just to make the sun not just blank LED white light, which obviously the sun isn't. So when you go outside, it is a sort of yellowish tinge to it. We can change the height of the fog, sky atmosphere, any of this stuff. Most of the time in events, we don't need to touch this. If you want to learn more about this, go watch other tutorials about all of this stuff here, because for the most part, we don't need to use this. We don't need to worry about any of this sort of stuff except for the sun. That's really the only thing that we need to worry about. So what's the next step? Well, we're going to move into that in the next tutorial, where I'm going to talk about SketchUp and how to import from SketchUp to Unreal Engine and that process there. You can follow similar processes using Vectorworks, AutoCAD, or whatever your modeling software is. But for now, my name is Bryn, and I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial.